What's up, Degenerate Nation? Welcome to Big Bets on Campus. This is the Monday college basketball betting preview. I'm Stuckey, and joining me as they do each and every Monday, BJ Cunningham and Mike Calabrese. Gentlemen, how are you?
Wonderful, Stuckey. It was a wonderful weekend of college basketball and NFL playoffs. I'm looking forward to finally getting into the full swing of college basketball here going forward.
Yep.
I had enough.
Go ahead, Mike.
I had enough mid-major instances where teams had some serious melts for me, so that gets my blood pressure up to the right level to sustain me, through the month of February, into March Madness. So I'm in good shape here. I'm feeling pretty solid.
Yeah, I unfortunately I do our NFL podcast, the Action Network podcast. If you don't download, otherwise I would be done with the NFL as a Bills futures holder. But there's only 3 NFL games left. It is like full go on college basketball. Looking forward to immersing ourselves in it through the end of the season. Today, what we'll go through is a look for tonight. We'll also talk a little Kansas, Texas Tech. We'll look at a spot for tonight and tomorrow. We'll start with takeaways from the weekend, though. So, Mike, I'll start with you, and then we'll get to a rant, by the way. But I'll start with you. Big takeaway from the week that was, or weekend, or just anything high level.
So I'll go to the A10, which is a conference that at the beginning of the year, I think had aspirations clearly to be a multi-bid league. Right now, if you look at bracket matrix, the only team that is in the field of 68 is Davidson, sitting on the 9 line. And it's a team that I've been bullish on the whole season. Obviously, they had that marquee win against Alabama in the non-conference schedule, and they've won 15 straight. But this game against Fordham looked like a trap for a lot of different reasons. And I think it was a good indication of how they can win ugly and kind of gut out those poor performances offensively. And you saw it with Hun Jun Lee and Michael Jones only combining for 9 total points. When they can win, when those 2 guys aren't carrying the load, I think that's a really good sign for them. They got VCU, the Bonnies, and Rhodey coming up in their next 6 games. So for me, just as a game where, I was looking at it on the Score app and the Action app and kind of seeing as it was progressing in the first half, I jumped in live to grab them. I was glad to see that they came back and won that game. But really, I think it's more indicative of them solidifying themselves as one of the top 3 best mid-majors in the entire country. So that was a game that I was interested in to see how they would handle emotionally coming off of a win against VCU earlier in the week. So I'm impressed with Davidson. I think if they can play their way up to the 7 line, that puts them in position, in that first weekend to catch maybe a Nova, LSU, Purdue team. And I think they're going to be a live dog. What are your thoughts on the Wildcats this season?
Yeah, it's a really good point. I mean, their offense, the Colts offense are always beautiful motion to watch, and they always get great shots. And Lee, I think he has potential to play at the next level. We'll see. But this team can shoot, and they can score with anyone in the country now, and they can make a run in the tournament. But I think that I said tournament again. I was getting made fun of last night by my wife and all of her friends. Tournament, I think I'm supposed to say, but it's my Delco accent coming out. I don't think that they would want to see a team like Purdue or Kentucky. They can't have a team that can completely overpower them inside, because I think it would be a layup drill. That's where they're really soft. But you saw them beat Alabama. I think that's like the perfect kind of team, that they could upset in the to get to the second weekend. It's a team that's not going to overpower them. Let's get in a shooting contest first to 90, and they could beat anybody. BJ, any thoughts on Davidson?
Well, yeah, we talked about him last podcast. Obviously, some shooting regression is going to come. They're shooting over 42% from behind the arc, so that's going to come down. You mentioned it. They're soft inside. They're not a good offensive rebounding team. They don't get to the free throw line at a high rate. It's basically just 3-point shots or nothing, and that can carry you through, a few games in the tournament. But like you said, eventually when you have to face a team that has some size inside, that can get the ball down low and dominate you, it's going to be really tough for Davidson. But, we'll see. They have VCU this week, and then a game going to St. Bonaventure coming up here in a little bit. And that's going to be a very interesting game to see where they're actually at and if they're truly one of the best mid-majors in college basketball.
Yep. And as president of the Homeless Fade Davidson fan club, I did not indeed fade them on Saturday, because that would be a profitable venture. I believe you did, right, BJ? Did you go through?
Yep. I had Fordham, and then I realized one of Fordham's guys was out, and I was quickly trying to figure out if I should just hedge out of it. And I just said, you know what, let's just let it ride. And it actually worked out for once. Usually that never works out when I do something like that. But
I stayed away for the greater good of the podcast and for you, so that you could cash.
Oh, thank you very much. That was very kind of you.
takeaway from you from either this past week or weekend?
Yeah. So, I mean, it kind of went under the radar with the NFL playoffs going on, but Michigan went into Bloomington and just blew out Indiana yesterday. And now they've won 2 straight, blew out Maryland on Tuesday. And I think we kind of have to ask the question, is Michigan somewhat back? You know, they were the number 2 KenPom team coming into the season. Their defense has been horrible all season long, but offensively, they've, put up over 1.2 points per possession in their last 2 games. Dickerson is back. They're starting to get a little bit healthy. They have a fairly interesting schedule coming up. They got Northwestern at home on Wednesday. Then they go to Michigan State on Saturday, which will be a huge game. And then Purdue the following Saturday. So it'll be interesting to see where this Michigan team is actually at. Are they up to the level of those upper echelon teams like Purdue, like maybe Michigan State, even though Michigan State is due for some regression. But, this is a team that was obviously very highly touted coming into the season and has loads and loads of talent. So, maybe keep an eye on Michigan as we go forward here, especially in the futures market. They're probably pretty good, decent odds right now. And if they actually can make a run as we get closer to the Big Ten tournament and everything, they could potentially see as a 4 or 5 seed there. But, before the Maryland game, they only had beaten 1 team inside the KenPom top 100. So it was really, really bad. And they had basically gotten to the bottom of the barrel after, getting beat by Illinois. So I think Michigan is kind of due for a run here. We'll see what happens, but I kind of like the Wolverines. I don't know what their current future price is, but I'm going to keep an eye on it. And especially, that game against Michigan State is going to be huge to see where they're actually at.
Yeah, my big takeaway over the past week is it's almost very similar to the Michigan story, and it's Oregon. We talked about just like, okay, Dana Altman at times will, especially with a new roster, a lot of turnover, you'll see them struggle earlier in the year. And then come March, the defense, they run a lot of defenses. They'll switch it up with press, and then they're morphing zone and the men in the same possession. So like it's not an easy system to pick up. And then usually, he has them peaking towards March. I had questions about the interior D, the defense in general, how the pieces were going to fit offensively. They sweep USC and UCLA. They look fantastic again last night. Oregon is, I think right now, a legit chance. They have a legit chance to make a run in the tournament. Mike, any thoughts on either one of those teams, if you believe in one or the other?
Yeah, I agree. And I think it does fit, as you were laying out that narrative with those Altman teams, where they just become a pest in terms of game planning because they're throwing so much at you defensively. And now they're finally getting contributions across their starting lineup, scoring the basketball. So I agree with you. It's a league in general that is really been begging for those, that 3rd and 4th team to emerge that can really put it together in the conference tournament come March. And I agree. I think depending on their price to win, the Pac-10 or the Pac-12 tournament come March, that's a team I have circled.
Yeah, to go look at Dana Altman's tournament results and just look. Oregon is like, even when people don't expect them to make a run, tournament setting, teams that aren't familiar with Oregon, you have one day to prep. That Thursday, it's a hard team to play. So look out for them. I think both of those. I think it's a good team to bring up. BJ, that you did in Michigan and Oregon, both clearly trending up. All right, before we go on to tonight and tomorrow's card, quick rant. Anything you want to rant about? Could be NFL overtime, which I won't get into, or anything else. But hopefully it's about college basketball. I'll start. Miami. I just have the Miami money line. I just need them to beat Florida State. They came out. They lay an egg. They lost like their 50th straight game. Go away. Go lose by 30. You're down 27. I'm okay. I wrote it off. I accepted the loss. Don't come all the way back and have a shot to win it. Pull me all the way back in. I didn't even pay. I wasn't even looking at the game on the app. And then I'm like, wait, they're down 5. Oh, I got to turn this on. Oh, wait, we got the ball back with a shot to win. Oh, we're just miss a jumper and lose by 1. Don't do that. Go away. Just leave. I was okay with it. So that was an awful start to a bad Saturday for me. But yeah, please, dogs, if you're going to die, just die. Don't come all the way back and tease me. BJ?
I'm going to go with Rutgers. So this game wasn't even on my radar. I wasn't really paying attention to it. And then an hour before tip, Rothstein tweets out that Eric Curry, Jamison Battle, and EJ Stevens, basically 3 starters for Minnesota, are out due to COVID protocols. So I bet on Rutgers -2.5. I threw their money line in a round robin, and they allowed Peyton Willis to score 34 points to go 8 from 13 from behind the arc. And Minnesota basically just played 5 guys the entire game. Well, 2 guys came off the bench for 3 minutes each, and that's it. Rutgers shot 3 free throws for the entire game against a team that had no depth, no starters, no nothing. And Minnesota just switched to a zone, and Rutgers just kept passing the ball around the arc and then eventually taking a horrible 3. They even led by 3 points with about 3 minutes left to go, and they just couldn't stop 2 guys for Minnesota. It was crazy. I couldn't believe it. It was really, really frustrating because, Rutgers, they beat my Hawks on Thursday. They hold one of the best offenses in college basketball, one of the best scorers in college basketball in Keegan Murray, to a total of 46 points. And then they give up 1.24 points per possession against Minnesota on the road, down 3 starters, basically only playing 5 guys.
Willis almost outscored your Hawks.
Exactly. It was a very painful day, a very painful way to start off my college basketball Saturday, and it just left me in a really sour mood for the rest of the day.
It's just this. There's certain things you're going to have to accept this year that on both ends of the spectrum, right? You're going to make a bet, and then you're going to have guys that are out, and then your team's going to get blown out, and you didn't know about it. Then you're going to have the other side where the team that you bet against has guys out, and then it's a basketball game. Shooting variance. The other team's going to come out, and then they win by 20 with all their backup. You just have to accept it. It's the crazy times that we live in. Rutgers, clearly a different team away from the rack, but yeah, that must have been a frustrating one. Mike, where are you going?
So obviously I'm dialed into CAA basketball, and this one really frustrated me. It was one of my 2 picks for my column with Tanner McGrath that we put out on Friday nights, our 2-man weave. And it was Delaware -9, ended up getting a great number on them. They're up 13 in the stretch run of that game against an Elon team that had no size. And basically I predicated it on the fact that Dylan Painter, the Villanova transfer, the pride of Hershey, PA, was just going to put up a huge game. He finishes with 23, 12, and 3 blocks. But here's the thing, in the last 11 minutes, when you take aside the fact that he had 1 shot attempt that he was foul on, 0 attempts from the field. And this is the thing that just drives me crazy about modern college basketball, is that you can fall in love if you face a zone with, shooting those threes and, the expected points on 3-pointers and stuff like that. Elon had 1 starter over 6'7". Painter was eating the whole first 30 minutes of the game. Just keep feeding them the basketball and you're going to win going away. They end up winning that game by 3. They probably should have lost. They just folded down the stretch. And just one little note, I grew up around gamblers. My father was a gambler, be at the country club. People were always talking about bad beats. And I remember as a very young child, when a gambler had a play on something where they're laying, 10 or 15, once it gets into that range where you're going to lose, I would always see them flip it around and be like, I hope Elon wins this game. And I remember as a kid, I'm like, that just seems weird to get that bitter that quickly. Now, I fully experienced it. I wanted the Phoenix to take them down there. A Delaware team that needed the win. They need the momentum. They've never won a game in the NCAA tournament in school history. Like, have a little pride. Just beat the heck out of bad teams, and they didn't do it. So that was very frustrating to see him take 0 shots in the final 10, 11 minutes of that game.
We got a lot of shout outs in there, including Hershey, PA. I was just talking. I'm not too far from Hershey, from where we grew up. Now I'm down in Lexington. I took my wife to the Hershey Hotel. Phenomenal place.
Not a euphemism, an actual hotel. It's a place you can go to.
Yeah, it's I saw you hyping up if you want to follow CAA, if you want a CAA better, follow Mike on Twitter. I saw you saying, look, if I win 1 more, maybe you jinx yourself with Delaware. You're on quite a run, but hopefully you can get hot again. All right, let's move on to some actual picks for tonight and tomorrow. Before we get into where we're looking at for tonight and tomorrow, we do have the big Monday game, which will break down each and every week. Kansas, Texas Tech. Here's the thing. When someone this weekend asked me, they said, who are the 5 teams? They were like, I've been watching football. Who are the 5 teams that you think have the best chance to cut down the nets come March? So, and this was before Kentucky Auburn, but I said, I think these are 2 of them, Kentucky, Auburn. I thought about Arizona. I think you got to put Gonzaga up there. Baylor's in the discussion. And then I said, yeah, I think, well, my 5th, I went with Kansas. And I look at the team and I say, they have all the pieces. They're really well balanced. They don't really have a major weakness. They have a go-to guy. And I don't think that many people are talking about Kansas as a legit national title threat. So they're not in that. I feel like they're just not. Usually they are. They're not in that same class. to people. I think this team is excellent. I'm looking forward to this one tonight. BJ, any thoughts?
Yeah, this is a really interesting matchup. Kansas, by the definition, escaped Manhattan on Saturday. They were down 75-69 with 3:08 left. And I went back and looked at the Action Network app's win probability, and Kansas State had a 97% chance of winning, and Kansas State didn't score for the final 3 minutes of the game. So, Kansas coming into this one is, they've obviously had close calls against Iowa State as well. But this is a strength versus strength matchup. Both these teams are, Kansas offense is top 10 in adjusted offensive efficiency, while Texas Tech's defense is top 5 in defensive efficiency. It's hard. Kansas, they obviously love to get the ball to the rim. Braun and Abaji really love to, take the ball off the dribble and get to the rim. But that's very hard to do against Texas Tech's defense. The real question I have in this one is, can Tech's, offense generate enough against Kansas's defense? Because Kansas does have, a few weaknesses. They are pretty good inside. Texas Tech doesn't shoot the ball at a very high rate from behind the arc. They do a ton of isolation. They do a ton of mid-range stuff. So basically how they have to win this game is they got to muck it up like they usually do. But, based on the line and the over-under, I do think that the number is correct. I might try to jump in live. But, yeah, it'll be a really interesting matchup to see if Kansas's offense can score against Texas Tech's defense.
Yeah, they have. I mean, Kansas has the shooters to exploit, or I wouldn't say exploit, but get to this Texas Tech defense. And right now, Kansas is not playing at its peak. And you might look at their winning streak and say, "Look, I mean, Kansas is on a roll." They're really not. I mean, they beat Iowa State by 1 at home, and by the way, they lost to this Texas Tech team back on January 8th on the road in Lubbock, 75-67. But that Oklahoma game, I think per shot quality, Oklahoma had an 85% post-game win expectancy. And then, as you mentioned, they escaped Manhattan with a win by 3. So it's a team that's just been kind of finding ways to win at the end of the games. And I think Self's still tinkering with some things. I have no interest in laying it here, but like you, I think the line is about right. Any take here, Mike?
I've kind of been a broken record recently on Kansas and Jalen Wilson's contribution, but it really started with that game against Texas Tech on the 8th. He had his breakout game. He contributes 15 rebounds, and even his performance against K-State, he's finding a way to be impactful without taking many shots. I think he only took 8 or 9 shots in that game, finishes with 16 points, 10 rebounds. I agree that, he's a part of them reaching their ceiling this season. So I'm really encouraged to see him play efficient basketball and not necessarily be someone who needs to have the ball in his hands a lot to make an impact. So I agree. I think that the game is accurately priced, but I'm just interested from a bigger picture perspective to see him continue this level of play as someone who's holding, I believe it's an 18-1 future on Kansas. I'm feeling pretty good about where they are right now.
Yeah, it's a good price. And what I think they really need, I think the pieces are there for Self to have them peak and come March. What they really need, and you nailed it, Wilson. And then the one thing that would scare me about them to make a journey run is McCormick going to show up for 4 or 5 games in a row. I mean, here, ready? 11. We'll start here. 15, 8, 11, 2, 14, 1, 17, 4, 19, 6. These are his point totals. I mean, he looks great. Then the next team, it's like, what happened to McCormick? So, but if they can get consistent dominant games out of him, and then Wilson, they have the guard playing Self. So that's another thing I'm going to watch. With can McCormick just can get some consistent play out of him? It's very bizarre. All right, let's move on to games that we're looking at for tonight. I will say, I'll start. I'm going to go, I think Northeastern. I got to ask you about that, Mike. I got to ask about Northeastern. I think they've been just snake bit to start. I mean, they've been shorthanded. They can't buy a break in their roster. They haven't bought a break against anyone else. I think this, look, we said this last Monday, is the buy low spot for Northeastern. I will be on them, but I'm going to say St. John's +7 against Seton Hall. And I think you see this a lot of times. It's a very unique spot. They just played on Saturday. They're playing on Monday. I don't care if they played on the moon. Like they both have to do the same travel after they just played. There's no real travel advantage here. Like, okay, we played here. Now on Monday, we're going to play here. So I think that the home court swing in the line from last game to this one is too much. So I like the Johnnies. Mike, I'll throw it to you. Northeastern, would you, as the CAA guy, would you recommend betting them?
So yeah, when that point spread came out, I thought that indicated to me either you're interested in, Wilmington on the money line, or it's a pass. And I agree, Northeastern has had all these, bad things happen to them. So why not go ahead and chalk it up as an opportunity for them to finally bounce back? But this, I'm going to sit on the sideline, or maybe just, a half unit on the money line. And I agree with the assessment on St. John's and Seton Hall. If it had been a higher scoring game and St. John's had played the kind of pace they wanted to play and lost and came up short, I would probably stay away from this. But the fact that they, were taken out of that tempo and they play a lower scoring game, I think it was in the mid 120s. I think there's a lot of value in them getting back to the brand of basketball they want to play and kind of dictating the pace a little bit, on a short road trip. In terms of the play I like here, the Patriot League has had some very strange home and away differentials in terms of the point spread. And this is a game where Colgate opens against Loyola Maryland as an 11-point favorite. And I can understand why. Since 2015, Colgate is far and away the best home favorite in the Patriot League. They've covered 64% of their games in those spots, which puts them in the top 3% of all of college basketball. So I understand showing them respect. But when you look at what they've done in recent weeks, they've been feasting on bad teams, Lehigh, Army, Bucknell. And defensively, they don't throw teams off of what they're trying to do. They don't create turnovers. You can get threes and open looks whenever you want them, and they don't really crash the glass. And you're looking at a Loyola team that's one of the best defensive rebounding mid-majors in the country. They got those Serbian twins, Ilic. They got Golden DK. They have the size to be able to make a difference there. And then when you look at how they're playing in the Patriot League, this is something I harp on over and over again. Don't look at stats, holistically for mid-majors, particularly when they can be biased by having played up in their non-conference schedule. When you look at how Loyola is playing in the Patriot League, they're top in turnover margin. They're third in rebound. They're third in opposing field goal percentage. They got the leading scorer in the whole league in Cam Spencer, almost 20 points per game. And they've been damn good on the road, 4-1 straight up, 4-1 against the spread in their last 5, including 2 outright upsets. So I'm going to go ahead and take the Greyhounds here plus 11. I think it's a little too rich. My power rankings call for this to be an 8-point spread.
Yeah, some of the lowest home court advantages in all of college basketball in the Patriot League. You go back to Ivy League, kind of the same way. You're not going to have crazy home court. You don't have crazy fans in these huge gyms. Travel isn't bad. So I don't mind that look as well. Let me ask you a question though. Not just this year, for the rest of your life, you have to throw one out. CAA, Patriot League. Are you clear CAA all day? You can never watch the other one the rest of your life.
See, CAA, to me, there's actual opportunities to watch it. I don't have to watch it on like a Facebook Live kind of stream. So I'll go ahead and keep CAA and throw the Patriot League, the drum and fife, all the pomp and circumstance of the Patriot League just kind of goes out the window for me. If you're making me have that Sophie's choice, I'll go ahead and stick with CAA. So
you're marrying CAA, you're killing Patriot League, and this is a family-friendly podcast, so we don't have to talk about the other one. BJ, where are you going tonight?
I'm going to go to the A10. I'm going to go George Mason -7 over St. Joseph's. It's been a really weird season for George Mason. They won their first 4 games, including a win on the road in Maryland. Then they lost 5 straight. They went on a COVID pause in early January. They come out of that COVID pause. They lose to George Washington, who was down 2 starters and is, outside the top 250 in the Ken Palm rankings. But although, George Mason's best player, Josh Aduro, was out this past weekend, they beat Dayton at home with Aduro back in the lineup, 50-49. And now I think they have a pretty good matchup against St. Joseph. So the Patriots shoot threes at the 17th highest rate in the country, and they knock down a little over 36% of them. So a really good 3-point shooting team. St. Joseph's is 290th in the country in 3-point field goal percentage allowed. George Mason should be able to torch them in transition. St. Joseph's allows 1.13 points per possession there, and that's the bottom 6% of college basketball. On the flip side, St. Joseph's is not really the type of offense that's going to exploit George Mason's weaknesses. The Patriots are really bad against spot-up shooting. St. Joseph's 209th in the country in effective field goal percentage, and they shoot below 33% from behind the arc. So I think it's a good spot for George Mason to continue to, get some positive momentum going forward with Oduru back in the lineup. So give me George Mason -7.
All right, let's move on to Tuesday and tomorrow. If you're listening to this on Monday, looks that we have maybe just one game. If you want to throw out 2, go right ahead. It's a smaller card. I think that I'm curious to see where this line comes out, but you can't not look at Missouri at home against Auburn after And look, it was really disappointing because that game I was so excited for it. Then Kentucky has injuries, and the same thing happened against LSU. Auburn is spectacular. If you watch them, you can tell that they're a legit national title contender. They're number one in the nation right now. But you also can tell that Auburn is not used to being the number one team in the country. If you looked at how they celebrated that win over Kentucky, it's obviously a huge win, but they were celebrating. And that's an enormous win for them. They're number one in the country. Now you go to Missouri. And I think Missouri's been getting, value at home in these spots of late. They're playing a lot better. You know, they beat Alabama at home by 6. They go to Arkansas. They lose by 700,000 points. It was an absolute ride the true spot for Arkansas. They go to Texas A&M. They play Texas A&M at home. They're in position to win it. They choke late. They go on the road and beat Ole Miss by 25. And then they actually played better than I expected at Alabama last game. So I think that Missouri at home against the number one team in the country in just a sleepy spot. Like, can I get 15? I don't know if it'll be that high. But you have to look at a potential Auburn fade depending on what the number is in Missouri here, where I think it's just I could see Auburn coming out extremely flat, and then they'll inevitably make a run. So scary team to fade and take on the Tigers here, but I think that's the look. Mike, anything for you?
I just need to make sure I protect my St. Joe's Hawks here, even though I agree with BJ's play. It's either stay away from me or I think you should be on the Patriots there. I'll just, throw some positivity in there. Larry's Cheesesteaks on 54th. Great place to grab a cheesesteak late. In terms of my plays here and, my one look at, I'm interested to see where the total comes out between Arizona and UCLA. Arguably one of the best regular season Pac-12 games in years. But in terms of trends, you look at UCLA, they don't play necessarily at a snail's pace, but they're super comfortable slowing things down. 8 of their last 11 have gone under the closing total, and 5 of those 8 have come by 10 points or more. So that's pretty significant for numbers that have been lining up in, the high 130s, low 140s to go way underneath. Arizona's also been on an under trend, 5 of the last 7. But when you look at what Tommy Lloyd's put together, it's not an offense predicated on one guy going off. Mathurin, Koloko, Tubelis, Krisa, they're all averaging over 12 points per game. So this number I'm interested to see where it pops off at, because if it's below, let's say 152, I think I'm interested in potentially playing this over that total.
Yeah, if you haven't watched Arizona, some of you might not have seen them a lot because they play on the West Coast. And if you're not familiar with their coach, Tommy Lloyd, he inherited a really good team with a ton of talent. And you can tell where he came from because if you watch Gonzaga, right? So if you watch the Gonzaga game, at every possible moment they want to go. It is at all speed. Same with Arizona. You watch them; they are push. I think they're maybe first or second adjusted tempo, and it's just get out and go. You can see a lot of similarities between those two teams. And Mathurin, lottery pick, they are a complete team. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to this game. BJ?
Yeah, I'll stay out west. I'll go to the Mountain West. Wyoming, Boise State, huge game on Tuesday night. Wyoming has been kind of overperforming this season. Their shot quality record is 13-4, but they're 15-2 on the season. This is a pretty big wake-up call for them because they're going to be facing one of the best defenses in mid-major college basketball. Wyoming is 16th in effective field goal percentage. They're top 10 in 2-point field goal percentage and free throw rate, along with the fact that they hardly ever turn the ball over. But what's funny about Wyoming, and I don't think I've ever seen this before, but when they're incredible in the half court. They're the second best team in college basketball in points per possession in the half court.
EK, man, he's been phenomenal.
Yeah, but they're second to last in points per possession in transition, and they hardly ever go in transition. So, but it's just very weird, like the two opposite ends of the spectrum. Boise State, top 7% in points per possession allowed in half court defense. Also, Wyoming, one of their starters, Xavier Dussel, who averages about 10 points a game. He's missed the last 3 games. So this is going to be a difficult matchup for them on the road. Boise State, they're not good offensively by any stretch of the imagination. Their 42-37 game against San Diego State on Saturday maybe set college basketball back 20 years. But they are a great offensive rebounding team. They get to the free throw line at a fairly high rate. They shoot 61% on shot attempts at the rim. Wyoming is an elite 3-point defensive team, but Boise State doesn't take a lot of threes. So I think this is a really good spot for Boise State to take down Wyoming. Wyoming only won by 2 against New Mexico this Saturday. So I think they're due finally to have a loss after this long winning streak. Ken Palm has us at -5. I would love to have Boise State at -5, but I would play it all the way up to -7 if Dussel is still out.
Yeah, I almost sent a message in our Slack to the product team that the score was wrong in that Boise game. I was like, wait, this is it says final. There's no way that 42-37. I don't hate that look at all. By the way, we have to come up with we're going to do some kind of podcast Monday episode. We'll do like a competition, maybe a type of leaderboard. We need punishments. And so think about it. And if you have ideas, wherever you listen to the podcast, please leave a review, 5-star review. We'll do some giveaways here shortly. I know, like, I'm thinking Mike has to be like, his punishment has to be the hawk. He has to be the whole entire podcast. He has to be waving his arms. I don't know. BJ, it's got to be Iowa related. I have to be Kentucky related. So think on that. We got some time. It'll be a March thing. But appreciate everyone tuning in. Thanks as always to Mike and BJ. Like I said before, please leave a review, 5-star review. Subscribe, unsubscribe, tell a friend, tell an enemy. Stuff really helps us out. Guys from the 3-Man Weave will be back on Wednesday, and then myself and BJ will be back on Friday afternoon with the weekend betting preview. Good luck to all of your wagers tonight and throughout the rest of the week, and we'll catch y'all later. Cheers.